Good morning, friends, and thank you for joining me. UFC 310, one of if not the best pay-per-view UFC event of the year, where we have Alexandre Pantoja taking on Kai Asakura in a main event flyweight title fight. Looking forward to that. We've got 14 fights to break down. Hell of a matchup between many of these fighters. Thank you for joining the stream this morning as we break down all 14 fights from a betting perspective. And I appreciate you if you wouldn't mind hitting the like and subscribe button. We are making our way forward. Let's get to the first fight of the evening, where we have heavyweights on tap. Kennedy Nzechukwu taking on Lucas Brzeski. And what's interesting here is Kennedy Nzechukwu recently moved to heavyweight. I love hearing the Team Fortis corner boisterous bunch screaming demands of their fighters, and Kennedy Nzechukwu has recently he's listened to his corner, which is a nice treat to watch, because earlier in his career he would go AWOL, and he's lost a few fights that way. Now look at this, minus 500 betting favorite against Brzeski, who's coming off of a loss to Michael Parkin. And Brzeski here, I believe he has been brought in to be demolished by Kennedy Nzechukwu, who has a significant reach advantage. I think that the heavyweight move to heavyweight is going to help his chin out here, and I suspect that Kennedy Nzechukwu will walk away victorious. And the under 1.5 here is at plus money, which to me is a little shocking here. I believe that there'll be a knee up the middle from Nzechukwu, who is likely to put out Lucas Brzeski. And Brzeski, in my opinion, should not be with this promotion. Now, second matchup of the evening, where we have Chase Hooper taking on Clay Guida in a lightweight affair. Clay Guida has fought, many fights professionally, and the human body can only take so much. I believe Clay Guida is in his 42nd year here on planet Earth, and Chase Hooper, yes, he's taken a sink worth of damage here on the feet. He's been brutalized. He's been beaten. And at one point in time, Clay Guida, yes, was able to outstrike Michael Johnson. That was a truth. We saw that take place a few years ago. I was very impressed with Clay Guida and his versatility there. Now, Clay Guida, a wrestler by trade, the carpenter, I am shocked he's still competing inside the UFC promotion here, and he's taking on a Chase Hooper. Look at this line, minus 1,200. Now, there are a few different ways you can approach this fight. I believe the unders may be in play here. Also, is it going to be a submission, or is it going to be a TKO victory for Chase Hooper? We've seen Hooper kind of open things up recently on the feet, and when he's able to maintain and establish top position, he will get his hands going, and usually he does that to change the trajectory of his opponent's approach. His opponents will cover up, and then they will stop hand fighting for a second, and then he will get back to the choke again. So that's a potential path to victory. But you look at the line here, minus 250, I believe, on Chase Hooper to win via submission. I think that that's wild if you're banking on that specific outcome, though. That is, when you talk about implied probability, that is the most likely outcome of this fight, is Chase Hooper to win via submission. I will be picking Chase Hooper to win inside the distance. And you look at Clay Guida and the miles on him, and his losses. He does have a tendency to tap out at times, and then he'll bounce right back up. but I think this is Clay Guida's swan song, and expect Clay Guida to leave his gloves inside of the UFC octagon here. So give me Chase Hooper to win inside the distance. And if I'm making a play on this fight, I would advise the under 2.5 here. By the way, are the New York Mets going to lock up Juan Soto? Excellent question. We'll find out soon. Or is he going to stick with the Yankees? Now, Michael Chiesa taking on Max Griffin. Both of these fighters, elder statesmen of the division, 170 pounders. Michael Chiesa at one point in time competed at lightweight, and he drained himself to degrees which were obscenely unhealthy. And Max Griffin, the fight against Jeremiah Wells, I was on Jeremiah Wells there, took loss in that fight. And Max Griffin ended up winning that matchup. I stood next to Jeremiah Wells recently. I was shocked at I was expecting him to be a bigger fighter in person, and Michael Chiesa is massive for the division. Still, it boggles my mind how he competed at lightweight. He's a grappler by trade. He is a suffocating grappler at that, and I believe that's likely what will take place in this matchup, barring a bonehead move by Michael Chiesa. And we've seen him against Vicente Luque, against Kevin Holland, and others. He is his own worst enemy many times inside the octagon, makes unforced errors. And I believe that's why this line is close here. I expected to see Chiesa blow out to a significant favorite. It hasn't happened. And Chiesa has one foot in the commentators area, one foot out the door. And he knows that is where his career is headed after his fight game is over. And Max Griffin, man, who remembers Max Griffin's fight in Orlando, Florida, where he beat Mike Perry? That was the climax of Max Griffin's career. But I suspect he'll take a loss here to Michael Chiesa. By the way, let's take a look at the chat here. It's fight morning, baby. We're here ready to go. Good morning, JP. Welcome aboard, Ben. Hope you're feeling well today. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in and making a morning with me. Shady, I'm going to wake up Big Pretty in the near future. I got you. She's snoring in the other room, but before this breakdown's over, she'll make an appearance. Andrew, you're here. Lou is here as well, and Mushrooms here. Welcome. Chiesa Swan Song fight. Yes. Thank you. Smash that like button. I appreciate you. All right, let's talk flyweights. In this fight, Josh Van taking on Cody Durden. I'm really looking forward to this one. This fight could play out a number of different ways, and I am fired up here. Cody Durden, who you saw, he can fight and stick to a game plan. He will sell out and go with a heavy grappling approach if he has to. He's really worked on his cardio, and he's reined things in. He's taking on Josh Van, who is a young, spry fighter who has he reached his potential? No. Is he susceptible to making greenish mistakes? Yes. Josh Van, I mean, we saw against Edgar Chairez, my God, this kid will walk right into the fire and not make the right decisions many times. And he has been brutalized on the feet at times. Granted, that's his best weapon is his hands. He's comfortable in the pocket, Josh Van. His body work is phenomenal, and he's young and he believes in himself, and he will he will stand and trade and has no qualms getting into a war. And Cody Durden, he also has no qualms getting into a war, but lately he's been fighting to his strengths. The challenge here for Cody Durden is sometimes he's his own worst enemy, and I've seen that a few times. I was on him against Matt Schnell. Cody Durden, can let the fight slip away. He can get cracked. It takes one or two mistakes, and he'll make a big poor decision multiple times in the past. Oh my goodness gracious. The Bruno Silva fight, he was winning that fight handily and then got cracked. And here, I believe that Cody Durden could be the favorite here, could be lined a favorite in this fight. The problem I have a problem with just internally putting money on Cody Durden in this spot, because I think that he will be looking the part. He'll be fighting really well, and then he'll get dragged into a firefight where Josh Van is able to get what he wants. And these two will likely be trading in the center of the octagon. The other thing I need to mention here, Josh Van is a very small fighter for the division, and he has not shored up his nutrition game. I've listened to a number of interviews in previous camps. Haven't heard anything about this specific fight camp, but what he said to reporters is that he eliminates pork and rice in the lead up to his fight camp. And as far as strength and conditioning goes and nutrition, hasn't made many additional changes there. And that is a remedial approach, especially when you're talking about competing at the highest level. And Cody Durden, at American Top Team, somebody who is, this is everything for him. And I believe that Cody Durden's going to walk away victorious in this fight, but this is a situation where Josh Van, he's outmatched from a few different perspectives. The wrestling, the strength, I believe the durability is a problem here for Josh Van, but the body work of Josh Van could be on display. And I believe that when it comes down to it, Cody Durden could make a bonehead mistake of his own here. That's why this is a dangerous fight. But I'm leaning and picking Cody Durden to come out victorious. He could get his wrestling going, and he can crack. And I believe this is Van's third fight in just a few short months, where he is really he's racked up a lot of damage. And at that Noche UFC card, man, Edgar Chairez and him were throwing down. Didn't have to be that way. Chris Weidman taking on Eric Anders in a rebooked fight. This matchup, I initially locked in Chris Weidman the first time this was matched up at plus 144. And look at the way the line has moved here. Now Chris Weidman's the betting favorite on the morning of fight day. And this is a catch weight fight. Both of these fighters came in at around 194 pounds or so. This is tough, man. You have two weight cuts. Granted, they weren't as deep as the first time, but the fight was rebooked across the country, and they have to go through the weight cut again. Man, this is a really tough fight to pick, because Eric Anders could come out here with his piston-like left hand and catch Chris Weidman early. Weidman, though, I believe he will get his wrestling going. He's got a sellout there, and it could come at a cost, especially multiple weight cuts. I picked Weidman the first time these two were matched up, and I'll go to the well again. I think if you're getting dropped by Jamie Pickett, come on. I mean, it doesn't get worse than that in the UFC. Granted, Eric Anders did come out victorious in that matchup. But imagine what Weidman would do to Jamie Pickett. And MMA math doesn't necessarily pan out, but Chris Weidman, former All-American, former UFC middleweight champion of the world, even both of these guys up in age. Not much tread life left on either of these fighters, but I'm going with Chris Weidman here to walk away victorious. And that is a dangerous fight for both fighters. Eric Anders, the gas tank, is an issue for me. Weidman here, also gas tank issue, but the wrestling, I believe, is going to be the difference maker here. We've got many additional comments here. Thomas. Am I the only one on Rude Boy? We're about to break down that fight. This is the way for Durden. Yes, we talked about that. Let's see. Look at that, Shady. You're on, Durden. Okay, Evan, I see you. Good morning. Today's the day. We are excited. We're fired up. That was a sweat. Yeah, when Pickett cracked him. You're right. All right, now let's talk about a really interesting matchup where Bryan Battle comes in 4 pounds overweight, 175 pounds for a welterweight matchup. Now, this isn't the first time that we've seen Bryan Battle miss weight. And every time he misses weight, he looks horrible on the scales, but that doesn't necessarily impact him in the fight, at least what we've seen recently. The Giuseppe matchup, walk through fire there. His head was like a Pez dispenser getting rocked back multiple times. The striking defense of Bryan Battle is almost non-existent at times, and he's fighting a tactician, a sniper in Randy Brown. Randy Brown, though, chin is an issue. Great footwork by Randy Brown. Also, don't sleep on Randy Brown's ground game. I've seen Randy Brown compete on the mat and put a lot of fighters in problems. Don't forget that one-armed rear naked choke against Alex Cowboy Oliveira. Bryan Battle, this fight may come down to a war of attrition out there. Bryan Battle likes to march forward, will chop away at the low leg kick when he is facing certain opponents. I like the game plans that I've seen recently from Bryan Battle. The JDM matchup for Randy Brown, that was a bad look. Got dropped and then submitted. And when I watch Randy Brown, his kryptonite is his chin. We saw, was it? It was Nico Price, I believe, who put out Randy Brown. That was a concern. I remember watching that fight, and the Chaos Williams fight. Man, there've been a lot of close calls where he's also come out the other side victorious at times. The Gooden fight. Bryan Battle, though, here, how much did that weight cut take out of him? It's not like he missed by a pound or two. This was a massive weight miss. Was there an undisclosed injury that we're unaware of? But Randy Brown takes the fight after some trepidation posts. I saw that Instagram post. Now he gets 30% of Bryan Battle's purse. Is that worth it? Is it worth it to take a potential loss? By the way, if at the weigh-ins, if you saw Bryan Battle's back, massive back, he's going to be huge when he comes into the octagon. And that is, in my eyes, a difference maker here. But I will say this: styles make fights. If you lined Ian Garry versus Randy Brown, I believe that's a close, very close competitive matchup. You make that a 3-round fight, I think that fight is very closely contested. I wish that fight was taking place instead of the Shavkat Rakhmonov Ian Garry fight. But MMA math doesn't make sense sometimes. I'm going to be picking Bryan Battle to walk away victorious. This is the other thing I need to mention. Sometimes the UFC gets on fighters' cases when they don't take the fight. You put in a training camp, you pay your coaches, you fly out for the fight, and you spend all of those weeks training, and then you get 30% from your opponent's purse. How much is that worth? 4 pounds is a lot of weight. And if you turn down a fight, who's to say you're not going to get booked on the next card? Who's to say your opponent isn't going to accept that fight? So Randy Brown's behind the 8 ball here. We saw what happened to Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. We even saw what happened to Chris Weidman recently. I don't know if he ended up getting his show money there, and there's no certainties in this game, as I've mentioned many, many times before. So dangerous fight for both fighters. I do understand Brian Battle. The striking defense is a major, major concern here, especially when you're fighting someone who likes to stick and move, and Randy Brown likes to do that. And Randy Brown has solid cardio. So Brian Battle's going to have to step on the gas pedal and hurt Randy Brown, get those leg kicks going early. Give me Brian Battle to win that fight. We've got some, look at this. You wanted to bet Rude Boy, but it just feels like Battle is going to pull it off even with the poor weight cut. We'll see. Missing weight is one of the many problems UFC could fix. Yeah, make it worth it. Take a point. That would change the complexion of this fight. Now, everybody, thank you for tuning in this morning. I appreciate you. I'm about to break down Movsar Evloev taking on Aljamain Sterling. I love this fight. Featherweights. Now you have Aljamain Sterling, the former champion, moving up. And granted, he's coming off of a win over Calvin Kattar, but styles make fights. Calvin Kattar is nowhere near the type of fighter of Movsar Evloev. You have a striker in Calvin Kattar, and Evloev, who is a heavy grappler who will, tooth and nail go to the grappling, but he also can bang at times. He's a decision fighter through and through, but this fight should be really, really interesting. I'm looking forward to this one, and let's break it down. So you have Aljo, who I know he's responded to me many times in the past, and when he was fighting Pedro Munoz, I was concerned about the leg kicks in that matchup, and he responded saying that what you want to do against a leg kicker, leg kick the leg kicker and meet that response head on. Now, is he going to grapple heavy with Movsar Evloev, who looked beyond shredded at the scales yesterday? I have no idea how this guy makes featherweight. And Aljo, both of these guys looked like they were in similar size, but when they get their hands on each other, I expect Evloev to be the much stronger fighter here. You also have Movsar Evloev, who is an undefeated fighter, and he's been on the brinks. He's been on the brink on the brink of losing many, many times. Arnold Allen, I believe, was it Hakeem Dawodu, Diego Lopez? I was at that fight against Lopez, and you saw Mike Grundy also had him in big, big trouble. But Movsar Evloev, the aura of invincibility, the undefeated nature is something that carried him through. I think, what was it, against Dawodu, where he was wagging his finger and he was getting clipped at times. Now, does Aljo have the stamina to go 3 hard rounds against Movsar Evloev? Good question. I know he did go 5 rounds against Henry Cejudo, who, gosh, can you imagine the size difference if Evloev and Cejudo stood next to one another? They would look 3 weight classes apart. I was on Aljo in that fight. I'm going to be picking Movsar Evloev here. And the rationale behind that is Evloev, he can rinse and repeat and just go to town when it comes to taking fights to the ground and rinsing and repeating and mat returning his opponents. And that lock that he has is tough to deal with. He's a very, very intelligent fighter. He does what he needs to do to win. And Aljo's getting up there, man. Also, he's in his late 30s here. He typically, from a striking perspective, he's grown by leaps and bounds, Aljo has. But when he strikes, it's usually a range striking affair. That's not his game. The big takeaway for me also, I go back to the Dan Ige fight, and the way Evloev, I know that Ige is not a grappler, right? But the way Evloev completely annihilated a potential dangerous fighter in Dan Ige, that spoke volumes to me. Also, the Arnold Allen matchup, that was very impressive. Arnold Allen is a dangerous fighter, and Evloev early on looked great. He also learns from his mistakes. So I am on Movsar Evloev in this spot, and I believe pretty strongly, I have a lot of conviction that he will walk away victorious tonight. Granted, he's fighting against one of our hometown fighters here from Long Island, and I have a tremendous amount of respect for Aljo, a great fighter in his own right. But this fight does take place at 145 pounds, and I think we will see a big difference in physicality here. Now, Aljo, yes, he's live to attempt a submission here, and he's always dangerous, and there are no certainties in this game, but I believe Movsar Evloev could be a much heavier favorite in this fight. Donnie, good morning. Great to see you. Grateful dude. I am grateful to have you here. By the way, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like and subscribe button, I know we're marching towards 1,000 subscribers here. I've been doing this for many, many, many years, and I have the track record to prove it from a betting perspective. So hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you. Now, Vicente Luque taking on Themba Gorimbo. This is a fight that gets booked after Nick Diaz cannot make it to the octagon. And I feel for Vicente Luque because he's had a portion of his life held up by Nick Diaz, and he's put in training camps. But was that fight ever going to come to reality? You have to get your head checked. If you're signing a contract to fight Nick Diaz, you know, he may not show up, and he didn't. So now Themba Gorimbo, who received some money from Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and has his complete and total focus on competing and putting in work, comes in here and has to know that the path to victory is likely a grappling heavy approach. But Vicente Luque, his front choke series is very dangerous. We saw against Michael Chiesa, and there have been many others who've fallen victim to Vicente Luque. Vicente Luque also can get those elbows going on the feet, can get those knees going on the feet. And I was at Vicente Luque's fight against Buckley, and I thought he was done. I was surprised that he didn't retire Vicente Luque, but he looked in great shape at the weigh-ins. I mean, great shape for Vicente Luque is kind of doughy on the scale. It's not like he's ripped, but he looks like he took this fight, this short notice replacement fight, as seriously as he could. Major stylistic change. And I think that Luque is going to catch Gorimbo in a submission. That's what I think is going to happen here. Are you going to bank on it? Not necessarily. Gorimbo, you look at who he's beaten, and this, in my opinion, is some recency bias here in this line, baked into this line. And this, I believe, is something that we can potentially take advantage of. I'm going to be picking Vicente Luque, but you also look at recency bias, and we could say that, well, Vicente Luque is completely washed now, right? I just think that Gorimbo potentially may not be ready for the submission threat. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate you. Oh wow, look at this, JP. You're heavy on Themba. So you think that that Vicente Luque is washed. That's what I'm assuming in that matchup. I'm on the other side of the fence here. I think that Luque, he's got to know that this is a dangerous situation that he's in, and Gorimbo doesn't necessarily have the power on the feet to cause Vicente Luque huge problems. I've seen against AJ Fletcher and others that Gorimbo's not very dangerous. I don't see him as being dangerous. Look at this. The anti-grappling for Themba will hold. Okay. Andrew, you love the channel. Thank you. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. I think that Luque is going to cause Gorimbo some problems here, and he's going to hunt for the submission. Now, man, I love this fight card. This is such an awesome fight card. There are so many fights on this one. We're gonna talk about Nate Landwehr versus Duho Choi in a minute, but there are so many fights where they are dangerous fights. I mean that you are going to have to put yourself on the line here and go out on your shield. And Dominic Reyes against Anthony Smith, both of these fighters are going to go out on their shield. We've seen against Dominic Reyes, he's been chinned numerous times. The Ryan Spann fight, that I believe that was a stiff jab that ended up dropping Dominic Reyes. And we've seen against Yuri Prohashka, that was oh my God, that was the beating of all beatings, Reyes. And I've known Dom Reyes even well before he took up mixed martial arts. Amazing athlete and a dangerous fighter. He's a southpaw who, when he commits to his strikes, if you're on the end of his left hand, you are getting folded. And I remember OSP, and there have been others through the years. We saw no one can take away what he did to John Jones on that fateful night. I know the judges saw it another way, but Reyes looked great there. By the way, I think, is it Alex Reyes, Dom Reyes' brother? Talk about someone who's taken a brutal beating inside of the octagon. That was a horrible beating that we saw Reyes' brother take. But here, Anthony Smith, 20 professional losses. Yeah, he had a I know the Delize matchup took place, and then also the Vitor Petrino matchup where Petrino felt like he was invincible, tried to land a takedown, got caught in the guillotine. Is Reyes going to put himself in that situation? I don't think so. I think Reyes keeps this on the feet, stays at range, gets his kicking game going. That's another area of Dom Reyes that you have to look out for. Anthony Smith, he is tough. He will hang in there, but I think that in the opening minutes, it's going to become pretty clear that Reyes is locked in, that he is going to find the target, and Anthony Smith, the damage will be too much, and that he's going to take his 21st professional loss. The problem here, though, Dominic Reyes, how much life does he have left in him? And we've seen him get dropped and floored, and the chin is a real issue here. Reyes up in Boston, putting Chris Weidman out at 205 pounds. That could potentially happen here also for Anthony Smith, that Reyes just lands on the chin, lands a straight left hand, and drops Smith. But Reyes by TKO is going to be my official pick. Now, Nate Landwehr versus Duho Choi. Woo-hoo. Can't wait for this one. Cannot wait. By the way, before I break this fight, would y'all like to see Big Pretty? We're going to talk Garry or Shavkat in a minute. Bovada has Reyes inside the distance +3. Wow. Huh? Interesting. Let's see. That line on Bovada is still available at the moment. Let me go get Big Pretty here. I see a lot of people pouring in right now. I'm gonna bring Big Pretty for us. Let's go get her. Let's go get her. Hang tight. Here she comes. Get her, Lily. Let's go. All right. Oh, there she is in all her glory. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning, gentlemen. Are you ready? Are you ready for Nate Landwehr versus Duo Choi? Is that a yes? I believe it is. Oh, man, this is a situation where Nate Landwehr, who is outmatched from a technical perspective, no doubt. He is going to be taking on the Korean Superboy, and I'm looking forward to this matchup because it's another very dangerous fight. Very, very dangerous fight. You have if Korean Superboy does not take Nate Landwehr out in the first round, I believe he's in for a horrible, bloody evening. I think that Nate Landwehr in the latter portion of this fight, if he can survive and get to the second and third round, he's going to have some big problems. Duho Choi, very, very precise striker, is a great puncher, but that chin, man, that chin of Duho Choi, the damage that we saw Cub Swanson inflict is a real problem. All right, Lily, let's go. Big Pretty is going down. Go back to bed, girl. Good girl. There we go. All right, so that was a visit. That was for Shady. I got you. Duho Choi. Can he put Nate Landwehr out? Yes. Can he? We've seen Herbert Burns put Nate Landwehr out. We saw Juicy J, Julian Arosa, put Nate Landwehr out. It's possible. The challenge here, though, is once that freight train gets rolling, it's tough to put a stop to it. And Nate Landwehr is going to have to stay conscious here. If he stays conscious, he wins this fight. That's how I see it. I know that you might have a lot of blood here. Oh my God, if you want to get the blood flowing this morning, you want to have a festive Saturday morning, you watch Darren Elkins versus Nate Landwehr. And I love that fight. That was a war of attrition. And here, I believe that Nate Landwehr is going to overcome some adversity. I recommend waiting until the end of the first round to make a live play on Nate Landwehr, because then that protects you if Duho Choi comes in completely dialed in and picks Nate Landwehr apart, which is likely what's going to happen early on. So give me Nate Landwehr in that matchup. Now, we've got Bryce Mitchell taking on Gracie. What's interesting, I've seen almost all of these fighters fight live in person, and I was at Charles Jourdain's matchup against Gracie, and it was a great game plan from Charles Jourdain. Just stay at range and pick Gracie apart. But Bryce Mitchell, that's not his game. He's not a striker. Has horrible footwork. And he's there to grapple. He's there to slow cook his opponent. And Gracie, I know he's a name. That's why he's on the main card, but he's not deserving of a main card appointment here. It's crazy, man. Oh, look at this. Andrew says, Night the Train. Remember what he said, Mama ain't raised no bitch. That is from the mouth of Nate Landwehr. That was one of the greatest post-fight interviews in San Diego. Look at that. Here we go. BP making an appearance. Yes, Nate Nate's a dog. Yes, he is. That's one of the reasons I showed BP up there. So Bryce Mitchell taking on Gracie. Love this fight. By the way, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like and subscribe button, folks are pouring in, continue to pour in. Let's get over 1,000 subscribers. Come on. 6+ years of tracked winning record here on betmma.tips, and we are continuing to march forward. So Bryce Mitchell versus Gracie. Great bounce back spot for Bryce Mitchell in that he doesn't have to worry about the hellacious striking of Gracie. Gracie went the distance, I believe, against Cub Swanson and showed his toughness. Gracie is not a power striker. We saw against Alex Caceres. He's going to commit to the grappling. Bryce Mitchell, sometimes he's his own worst enemy. Comes in against Josh Emmett, can't get any takedown game going. That was the path to victory there. And by the way, if you want to watch a devastating knockout, go watch the Josh Emmett fight. I thought that Bryce Mitchell potentially lost his life during that fight. That was one of the most visually disturbing, brutal knockouts you'll ever see. And thank goodness Bryce Mitchell was able to come back here. Looks in great shape. I understand Bryce Mitchell minus 950 at the betting window. That's a little wild, but you have to understand that Gracie's lost to some lower level opponents in the past. Now, is this going to turn into a grappling match? And Gracie, I'm sure he welcomes that. The line could be much closer if this is indeed a grappling match in the first round. I see Gracie. That's what he wants, man. That's what he wants. That's his world. And Mitchell's probably going to jump right into it. But I'll be picking Mitchell to win. Gracie, tough as nails. Does this go the distance? Possibly. This is a stay away fight for me from a betting perspective. I will be listening to, I believe it's the Purge siren that Gracie has walked into in the past. So if you like that Purge siren, sometimes I'll wake my sons up with that in the morning before they go to school. It really gets them going. But give me Bryce Mitchell to win. And there's a chance that he wins this fight late and cooks Gracie. Now, let's see. Oh, look at this. You can't trust Bryce. Yeah. Subbed by Brad Katona of all people. Great point, Moyes. Great point. And you say if Mitchell is going to sub Gracie, I see it being an arm triangle. Yeah, cook him to the bone. That's what he does. Look at this. Katona literally can't finish a sandwich. Yeah. Oh, you're right. He has a propensity, but he finished this minus 1,000 betting favorite. Hey, Liam, you make some great points here. I appreciate you tuning in today. Jourdain had no problem sitting in Gracie's guard for 15 minutes. Well, he's got to be aggressive here. Krone's got to throw something up, be aggressive. And that's the thing about Mitchell. He's his own worst enemy. This is the guy who just said he doesn't believe in wearing seatbelts because he thinks somebody's against him. And that has nothing to do about safety, right? Interesting stuff. Freedom. But freedom isn't free, my brothers. Cyril Gane taking on Alexander Volkov in a heavyweight fight. Now, this is great matchmaking. This is an awesome fight. I think this fight could be a lot more closely lined than it currently is. Cyril Gane, kickboxer by trade, great footwork in a larger octagon. But you look at Volkov, who's massive for the division, has knees, straight punches, can grapple. And that's the kryptonite of Cyril Gane. We've seen it in the past against John Jones and others. If you're able to get a hold of Cyril Gane, he could melt. And the much more physical fighter in Volkov we've seen in recent years against, I think it was Blades, where he got taken down time and time again, just kept coming forward and became dangerous the longer the fight went. Gane, he's going to be my pick, but I see Volkov as posing a significant threat here. By the way, also in the lead up to I know folks don't put a lot of stock into the countdowns and things like that. Volkov seems completely at peace here. He seems like he's refreshed, ready to go, and looks massive for the division. Looks like he's really ironed out the strength and conditioning. Ciryl Gane, though, likely to find the target early. The footwork of Ciryl Gane should be a major factor in this fight. The challenge, though, Volkov uses his range so well that I wonder the bobbing and weaving of Ciryl Gane is likely going to be the difference maker. I see him bobbing, weaving, cutting angles, landing strikes, and then getting to a place where Volkov isn't. So give me Ciryl Gane to win via decision. Alexander Volkov, very, very tough. And if they start to grapple, if there's clinching, then Volkov becomes a real threat. If there's cage pushing involved, that could drain the gas tank of Ciryl Gane. So give me Ciryl Gane in that matchup. Now, we've got co-main event of the evening. I'm starting to foam at the mouth here. Let's see. It's Mug sipping. Cheers, Mike. Yes, you've got that mug. I have I've got a Lake. Let's see. I've got a Lake Placid, New York Adirondacks mug here. one of my favorite places on planet Earth, Lake Placid, New York. If you get the chance to get up there, great. Let's see. You think Volkov's going to grapple and win? I hope he does. So let's talk Shavkat Rakhmonov taking on Ian Garry. Now, if you're able to get in on Shavkat Rakhmonov in the -200s, that's a different story than what we're talking about here, as Rakhmonov has blown out to -350. Now, Ian Garry, that win over MVP, he was able to get a body triangle going, get the body lock going. Spent a lot of time in that position, and MVP wasn't able to land many strikes on the feet, but he's not the type of fighter that Rakhmonov is. Rakhmonov is someone who will dead eyes walk forward and look to brutalize opponents and win by any means necessary. He's a very physical fighter who, it's one of those situations where Ian Garry, he's the much more tactical, precise sniper-like fighter who has a ground game also, but Ian Garry is not the physical fighter. Ian Garry is he's shown toughness. He's been dropped by Kenan Song. He's been caught by a few fighters, and I've mentioned this in the lead up to the fight. Also, the bone structure, the makeup of the body seems to be very, very different between these two fighters. And I don't think we've seen the entire skill set on full display of Shavkat Rakhmonov. This is a fight that takes place 5 rounds, and I believe that Ian Garry could look the part early. Dancing around, sticking and moving. Does Ian Garry want to engage in a firefight with Shavkat Rakhmonov? Not necessarily. Yes, Jeff Neal was able to cause Ian Garry. Jeff Neal was able to cause Ian Garry some problems and Shavkat Rakhmonov some problems. That's a mutual opponent here, and I was on Ian Garry in that spot. Here, Rakhmonov. Man, it's one of those situations where it's only a matter of time. That's how I see it. I remember this feeling when I saw Dominic Cruz taking on Chito Vera. You have a fighter where there's a brute force versus the much more technically sound, prettier fighter, and this is an example, I believe, where the brute will beat the tactician, and he has a number of paths to do this. Ian Garry, the physicality, I believe that's going to be a major problem for Ian Garry here. I believe that Rakhmonov, there's this path to victory for submission. There's a path to victory for brutal knockout. These are both undefeated fighters, though, and the self-belief in Ian Garry is real. This line, man, if it was a 3-round fight, I could see Ian Garry dancing around using the full square footage of the octagon to stay evasive and try to win a decision. But at some point during 5 rounds, I know folks may be banking on Rakhmonov gassing out here. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that this fight was supposed to be Bilal Muhammad versus Rakhmonov for the title. Rakhmonov was training for Bilal Muhammad. I know that these are different fighters, but I believe that he's ready to go 5 rounds if need be, and that there is a real threat here for Rakhmonov to hurt Ian Garry and put him away. Now, Garry's shown that he can be a tactician, and Rakhmonov can land, but also the striking defense of Rakhmonov is an issue. I was actually watching the Jeff Neal fight back with my oldest son, and he said, Dad, Shavkat doesn't move his head off the center line. And I said, oh, great observation, son. And that's something that he shed some light on, and I agreed with him. But I said, you know what? He wants a firefight. Shavkat, you start to see him almost smirk while he's in these firefights, and he wants that. He lives for that, and I believe that that's what's going to end up happening here, as Rakhmonov's going to get this done inside the distance. Now, you say it's always the potential for judges to be incompetent, and corrupt. Several fights on the card are concerning this one as well. Good morning. I also believe that if a fighter wins inside the distance, it's likely going to be Rakhmonov. Take a look at the scorecards, no action. Rakhmonov inside the distance, if you aren't comfortable playing, a minus 350. If this line was in the minus 200s much earlier, but it's been blown out. Now, let's talk main event of the evening. Thank everybody for tuning in. You've got the Flyweight Whisperer here, ready to break down the main event. 125 pounds, both fighters made weight. Kai Asakura taking on Alexandre Pantoja. Alexandre Pantoja, minus 270 betting favorite. And you saw the intestinal fortitude on display of Alexandre Pantoja against Brandon Moreno, against Brandon Royval. We've seen it in many other fights. I've backed Alexandre Pantoja many times. I've also bet against Alexandre Pantoja and lost. This fight, you have some unknowns here. You have Kai Asakura, octagon jitters, perhaps. I know he's a seasoned veteran of Ryzen, and this is his first time competing inside of the octagon. He's typically competed in the ring. And the other issue, the rule set here, he's a very innovative striker. He's someone who is accustomed to kneeing on the ground and being very flamboyant in the cage. He will plant his feet and commit to his strikes, whether they're hooks, but he has, I will say, striking defense is not a priority of Kai Asakura. He is a very aggressive fighter, and when he decides to go, you better watch out. And Alexandre Pantoja is a fighter who, what I love about him, the Alex Perez fight, he knew exactly what he was going to do. He was going to march forward. He was going to use his striking to close distance and get a hold of Alex Perez and then hunt for the submission. I suspect he'll do the same in this matchup, but he's got to be wary of the explosiveness of Kai Asakura. Kai Asakura, very explosive fighter. Also hasn't competed in a while. The octagon jitters, I mentioned that as well. I'm going to be picking Alexandre Pantoja to win here. This is a dangerous fight. A lot of fights are dangerous for Alexandre Pantoja, because striking defense isn't necessarily a priority of his. He's willing to go out on his shield. He's been on the brink of gassing out. I remember the first Royval fight. I was on Pantoja there, and I believe I was also on Pantoja via submission. And you saw he looked like he was about to go, man. But he locked that rear naked choke up, and the back taking ability of Alexandre Pantoja is simply incredible. We saw it against Sasaki. We've seen it against many others. I forgot the hearing Askarov, the hearing impaired fighter. So Alexandre Pantoja, dangerous fight against an unpredictable, explosive fighter. And I mentioned this one of my tweets earlier in the week as a significant underdog when you're outmatched. How do you give yourself an edge here? And one way is to be explosive and to be unpredictable and to come out be prepared to go out in a blaze of glory. And that means potentially gassing yourself out. Is Kai Asakura willing to do that, or is he here to dance around for 5 rounds and have people learn who he is and get that octagon experience out of the way? This is a title fight. I don't believe it's going to go 5 rounds. I believe that fight doesn't go the distance. Below minus 200 was a solid line to lock in, primarily because of the back taking ability of Pantoja. And I know he's gone to decision in recent fights, but I think that this is a good spot for him to lock up a submission here. Also, there is the real possibility that Asakura lands a knee up the middle or floors Pantoja. That is always a possibility. There are no certainties in this game. So the pick is going to be Alexandre Pantoja. But I'm really looking forward to this fight. I'm looking forward to getting back to business. By the way, if you have questions in the chat box, feel free to plop them in there. I will do my best to answer them. And I love this fight. I love from a flyweight perspective, you have a fighter who is willing to go out on his shield in Alexandre Pantoja, and also Kai Asakura. You've seen him against Horiguchi. He's willing to go out on his shield as well. The leg kicks of Pantoja may come into play here. We've seen Horiguchi land leg kicks and make it a world of hurt for Kai Asakura. He's not an invincible fighter. And the other thing I need to mention is, before we get out of here, I have to mention this, that the weigh-ins told me something. The way Asakura was moving, the body language, the optics. I know he during media day was kind of looking at Pantoja, staring him down, staying there, and as they were squaring off, it almost felt like Asakura, it wasn't a genuine. I don't think he realizes who he's dealing with here in Pantoja, who's a killer, who is a fighter. I know Horiguchi was a really tough opponent. But Pantoja, when the going gets tough, he really does get going, and he's willing to push himself to the end. But he also, as we've seen against Brandon Moreno had his moments, could have taken Pantoja out of there, wasn't able to do so. So the pick is going to be Alexandre Pantoja. How many finishes do you think we'll see today? I'm going to say 7. I believe we'll see 7 finishes today. By the way, 59 minutes. This is a significant length of a breakdown. Hopefully I did this justice for you all. We're marching towards 1,000 subscribers here, and thank you for tuning in and making a world of difference here. Go get what's yours, and I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you, my brothers. Let's do it.